On August 20th, 2007, Lyceum wrote a letter to the USAPA founders in an effort to garner additional support for the would-be union. In this letter, the firm stated, "A successor union which codified in its own constitution a commitment to the rational goal of date of hire seniority integration would not be constrained by the dictates of ALPA merger and fragmentation policy." Of course, we can all see that his analysis was not nearly as simple as the U.S. Airways pilots were led to believe. The purpose of this discussion is not to convince anyone that the Nicolau was fair. Even though the America West pilots generally believe it to be every bit as fair as some U.S. Airways pilots think it is unfair, the award itself is not up for debate. It is what it is, and it was finished long ago. The purpose is to explain why it is not irrational when compared to what other unions have done.
Something USAPA argues to this day is that because of other employee groups' use of data hire, so should the pilots. This argument certainly sounds enticing to those on the data hire side of this dispute. However, there is a very fine counterpoint with regard to the data hire seniority integration as applied to other employee groups in this merger: money.
That's right. Money is the reason date of hire is not an option for pilots. When a date of hire integration is used to integrate other work groups, it results in only minor differences in career earnings. For example, flight attendants might receive a slight premium for international flying or for an onboard leader position. But these positions are generally not restricted to aircraft type and seat like pilots. The same holds true for rampers, mechanics, and dispatchers. Minor variations in schedule and pay are the result of date of hire.
Furthermore, these jobs are typically not considered highly compensated positions. The income levels achieved for these non-pilot positions are similar to many other career fields, and these jobs do not require quite the same level of training, experience, and sacrifice to obtain.
Pilots, however, already bring highly technical skills and specific training and experience to the airline when they are hired. We are then given more training, gain more experience, and then become even more highly compensated. The income level achieved over time with pilots is not easily replaced by changing careers. Here is the catch. Using date of hire integration for pilots, especially in such a lopsided situation as the America West U.S. Airways merger, would potentially reduce a pilot's career earnings by half. Why? Because airline pilots begin as first officers, usually on the smallest equipment with the lowest pay. Then, as they gain seniority within the company, they normally advance to larger, more lucrative equipment as first officers and then upgrade to captain on the smaller equipment. From there, the path leads back to the larger equipment and even higher pay, but this time as captain.
At the top of the pay scale at most air carriers, the captain is paid a 30 to 40% premium over the FO pay for each aircraft type. The larger the aircraft, the higher the pay, and consequently, the greater, in absolute terms, is the difference in earnings between the captain and first officer. Top of scale pay for the first officers on the smallest aircraft is about half what a captain earns flying the largest aircraft. In our case, thanks to the Embraer 190, the top of scale first officer pay on our smallest airplane pays about 1/3 of the largest. Multiply this difference over a career and the result is stunning. Other work groups that use data hire per their own union merger policies do not face anywhere near this disparity.
The financial damages to the America West pilot group, particularly the first officers, would be catastrophic. Other groups for which date of hire was used are not similarly impacted. The assertion that Lyceum made, which stated, "A successor union which codified in its constitution a commitment to the rational goal of date of hire seniority integration would not be constrained by the dictates of ALPA merger and fragmentation policy," is flawed because this would not be fair or rational goal in many cases.
Date of hire is certainly not rational in our case because of these reasons. A pilot is not a ramper, not a dispatcher, not a mechanic, and is not a flight attendant, nor is a pilot compensated as such. This is an apples and oranges comparison and is exactly why ALPA merger policy was crafted in such a fashion. Arbitrator Nicolau was well aware of these facts when creating the America West U.S. Airways Arbitration Award. A simple date of hire solution is not appropriate or rational. In all cases, especially when one company has reduced its workforce by 1/3, has furloughed back to around 18 years of longevity, and has virtually no captain upgrades. But the other company, by contrast, is growing, promoting pilots to captain in an average of 7 years, and is only 23 years old at the time of the merger. Date of hire would have created a virtual staple of the America West pilot group beneath the U.S. Airways pilots.
Relative seniority, by contrast, only reduces the U.S. Airways pilots' unrealistic date of hire-based career expectations, but does not similarly obliterate their expected earnings or career expectations at the time of the merger. It is often stated among East pilots that date of hire is the, quote, gold standard for seniority integration. This is but one opinion among many. What is factual, however, is that arbitration is the true standard for pilot integration. The transition agreement, ALPA merger policy, and now federal law all agree. Facing a future merger, it is important to consider how U.S. Airways will likely be the smaller pilot group. Furthermore, any larger carrier with which we might merge will simply not accept a net loss of their own relative positions just because the USAPA Constitution demands date of hire. It will not matter to them and in fact mandates an untenable position going into the seniority negotiations with any other carrier. Demanding relative advancement by date of hire will not be any more effective than doing the same before George Nicolau.
When facing the prospect of a merger with another, most likely much larger airline in the future, the last thing the U.S. Airways pilots want to do is to set a precedent which means that the result of an arbitration is invalid simply because the larger group may not have received what they wanted in the first place. For the sake of your career, you really need to ensure that final and binding is exactly that.
Thank you for taking the time to view this video. Even if you do not agree, we nonetheless hope it improves your understanding of the many sides of the debate and will give you pause next time somebody tries to tell you that we pilots should have done things like everybody else.